Hey folks, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our video review of the Playster Combo Box and the service in general. So this will be a two-part video. In the first part, we'll be discussing the hardware that you get with the Combo Box, which is a free kit that includes an 8-inch Android tablet powered by the Intel Atom Baytrail processor, which is a quad-core chipset, and 2 gigs of RAM, along with 16 gigabytes of flash storage expandable via a SD card slot. You get this for free when you have a 1-year subscription of Playster services, in addition to a pretty decent pair of headphones. So really we'll be going over the hardware of this tablet in this first part as part of the value proposition, and in the second part of our review, we'll be discussing in depth the Playster service, which gives you unlimited access to their library of audiobooks, movies, ebooks, and music content that you can save as well as stream, and how it competes with the likes of Netflix, other premium services, maybe even YouTube Red on the web. So taking a look at the Playster8 tablet first, it's a pretty good mid-end tablet, I would say. It's not the most power intensive. It's not the most amazing tablet in terms of the packaging of the processor. That's simply because it's a mid-tier device. However, it does have a very good construction quality. The body is made out of aluminum, and it really reminds me of a first generation Apple iPad in its build quality and the overall choice of design features, including the antenna band on the back for the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, on top of the 5.0 megapixel autofocus enabled camera. Otherwise, it's a pretty lightweight build, and the size is comparable to the iPad mini since this is an 8-inch tablet, and it features a 720p HD resolution display. On the back, you find access to the speaker. It's not the best placement in the world. We would have preferred it to be on the front, but it gets fairly loud, not the most bass intensive, but if you play some light movies or music on the go, it should be decent, and plugging the headphones will obviously give you a better experience. The sides give you access to the volume key in addition to the power on-off switch, which are both very tactile and responsive and risen above the surface. There are chamfered edges on the sides, which makes the tablet seem more expensive than it is. And on the very top, you have access to the standard 3.5mm headphone jack next to a micro HDMI port for connecting it to a HD television or display. And there's also a micro USB cable for charging. The tablet itself takes under 3 hours to completely charge, which is fairly average, and lasted me roughly 5 hours of usage before I needed to recharge it again. So it's running on a pretty stock version of Lollipop, but it has a skin that's been done by Playster in some of the apps that's pre-installed. But overall, it's a pretty light UI on top of Android. It still makes it for a very organic experience that you can populate with your favorite widgets and applications. The screen itself offers vibrant colors as well as wide viewing angles because it incorporates the IPS technology, and also features a front-facing camera for video chatting, an LED indicator, and a home key, which is represented by this symbolic circle, although there isn't really haptic feedback to tell you when you've tapped on this. There's also an additional software home button always available on the bottom of the display, but you get this hardware one as well. So if you've used any Android phone or tablet in the past, this should really remind you of those. So there's not anything really to write home about. You can adjust things such as the brightness, you can change volume, change the accelerometer to make this into auto rotate, use Miracast for changing the screen and connecting it to an external wireless monitor. Otherwise, you can also take a look at some of the pre-installed programs on here. Namely, there is MC5 Modern Combat 5 as a which is usually a paid-for app that you get for free. So if you're into mobile gaming, it's on here. As far as the performance is concerned, again, very comparable to other Atom tablets on the market, coupled with 2 gigabytes of RAM. It's going to be fine for most people's uses, and for multitasking, browsing the web, watching YouTube videos, it's not going to hiccup or encounter too many issues. Obviously, it's not going to be as good as some top-of-the-line Qualcomm Snapdragon processors that are more expensive, but this is a pretty typical chipset in mid-tier tablets that performs as expected. You can also find it on quite a few Android tablets and two-in-ones on the market, so there's not anything too surprising here. Certainly better than a lot of MediaTek processors, and you'll notice that as far as general user interface goes, it's very smooth and lucid, and the touchscreen itself is very responsive as well. All these standard Google applications are also present on this tablet, and they include features such as Google Drive, Keep, Maps. You have access to Play services, photos, music, search, as well as contacts and calendar and Chrome. Now, there's also a file manager on board in addition to the, of course, Playster services. So there's going to be the Playster app, which you can launch to log in. We'll discuss that a little bit more in the next part of this review. And there's also a tour that very quickly goes through the standard Playster services, the interface, and how to set it up for the first time and log in. So this is a bit more of how to from Playster's part. But anyways, you can really tell that the tablet itself is pretty swift and all in all, not too heavily customized, which is good. Taking a quick look at the camera, it's not anything really to write home about, although 5 megapixels sounds decent on paper. It tends to produce best images, of course, in bright environments. And if you are a bit further away from the subject, since it doesn't have the widest field of view, but all in all, colors are fairly accurate looking. You can tap to focus and then capture a shot. It just takes a few seconds, so it's not instant, but you can do some emergency shots when on the go when you have to, and a very standard Android interface as well for changing things like the grids, the flash, the autofocus, as well as things like self-timer. I can swap it to the front camera if I want to, start recording video, and the front camera itself performs very similarly to the back camera, which is to say it only works well under bright light. So unfortunately, if you're planning on Skyping or video calling under darker environments, it's not going to work quite as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Otherwise, again, standard Google services include a few folders that have been pre-assigned. You can use Hangouts with the camera on here, and there are also Create services like access to Google Docs, Sheets, Spreadsheets, and PowerPoint in addition to Drive right here, and those worked flawlessly. So let's take a quick look at the web browser next and see how it performs. If we try loading up a rather complex site, for instance, the New York Times, we can try and load that up. We can see that there is tab browsing. The keyboard here is very spacious and responsive, and it's going to search, of course, using Google as the default engine. I can tap over here, and the page should load up in a few seconds. And you can see it defaults to the classic site, so it loads up all the Flash elements in addition to the complex ads that might be displayed on the side. So it makes for a very compelling web browser. I like the aspect ratio on this tablet. Again, quite similar to the iPad mini, so it's comfortable to hold, about the same size of a larger paperback novel. So it's not too heavy, but feels substantial in the hand. So you can see that I can scroll through all these subtext on the sides, and all the images as well as videos can load up directly from the browser. So it's very powerful. And the same thing goes if I load up another tab, I can still swap between these tabs without really that much lag. So it works very well as far as general web browsing is concerned. The thing with gaming, I would say that Modern Combat 5 is a pretty intensive, graphically intensive game, and that loaded up fine as well. Took a few seconds longer the first time to download all the files and load up the game sequences, but afterwards, when you're starting to play the game, I didn't encounter any hiccups or accidental crashes, so it worked pretty well, and everything seemed pretty stable as far as a performance standpoint is concerned. Just not the fastest thing, in the world, but it works quite well. Under settings, we can take a quick look at some other things. Sensor calibration, so we can just recalibrate the accelerometer on here, setting up printer, and if we tap on About Tablet, we see it's the Playster 8, Android version 5.1.1 Lollipop, and keep on tapping on this for this pretty classic Flappy Bird inspired game that you can see that indeed it's running on Lollipop. So not the latest and greatest version of Android, but at least it's a pretty stock install, and you can of course install your own widgets and skins if you want to. You can try rooting it if you want to as well to get a more up-to-date version, maybe 7.0 running on this tablet. So all in all, as far as the tablet is concerned, pretty good. Nothing out of the ordinary, but overall we were pleased with the construction quality and the fact that it makes for a pretty compelling web browser and video viewing experience.